I watch you work every day, Dad. I also study from books about sword forging, but the more I learn, the more I'm sure that I can never be like you, Dad. Yeah, not even close. Don't get too fixated. If you always try to follow in my footsteps, it'll be a waste that you were born as Chihiro Rokuhira. In case you just didn't open the internet for the last 3 months, Kagurabachi is a series written by Takeru Hokazono, and it follows our protagonist, Chihiro Rokuhira, who's the son of a legendary blacksmith who forged 6 enchanted swords that single-handedly ended a war. After his father is assassinated by a group of sorcerers and the swords are scattered, Chihiro seeks revenge against them by using his 7th enchanted sword that his father secretly forged before he passed away. I know Kagurabachi is a funny meme series that exploded in popularity because people wanted to be funny and whatnot, but past all of the jokes and people just talking about the series without really breaking it down, there's something quite special with how it utilizes its characters and those who wield their blades in this series. And it's done so well that I'm surprised that nobody's really talked about it yet. Kagurabachi uses Chihiro, his father Kunishige, the creator of the blades, and his first major antagonist Sojo, to introduce readers to the concept of the death of the author and furthermore, engage with it. To those who are unaware, death of the author suggests that the meaning that one pulls out of the interpretation of a book, movie, etc. should not be completely bound on what the author's intentions with it were, but rather, the focus should be on the stories itself and the reader's engagement with it. The way you can perceive this is, once a story is created and enters the public world and shared by many, it takes on a life of its own, with nobody to control it. This concept asks and even encourages readers to approach stories with a more open mind, which allows for multiple and possibly conflicting interpretations based on the reader's own lives, perspectives, and backgrounds. And now that I've broken down what Death of the Author is, we can move on to how it's applied to this story and its characters. When we're introduced to Chihiro in Chapter 1, he begins by introducing us to his father and speaking about him, as he doesn't even introduce us to himself. It's clear that this single chapter revolves around Kunishige Rokuhira, and we see them both work as blacksmith, with Chihiro describing this as his father being in his serious mode. And then, we see what is his usual self, which shows him listening to 3 fish. After Chihiro asks what these fish said, his father tells him that more than anything, they just want to dedicate themselves to learning, which Chihiro dismisses. And later on, Chihiro once again dismisses his father when he says that he was told that the fish are good luck. Kunishige begins to explain the fish to us. The red fish attracts good fortune, the black wards off evil, and the 3-colored one, well, in Kunishige's words, is supposed to be totally amazing. As we know, Kunishige would come to eventually craft Enten, his final sword based off of these 3 fish and what they mean to him. Each enchanted blade Kunishige crafts has 3 abilities, and the 3 for Enten are as such. Kuro, which covers Chihiro's arm and katana in a black liquid, and this black liquid can be used to release flying slashes that are significantly more powerful than regular slashes, being used to cut all that Chihiro deemed to be evil. Akka. This summons the red goldfish. This goldfish swims around Chihiro to protect him from any oncoming attacks by absorbing them and redirecting these same attacks back at his opponents, making any misfortune that comes to Chihiro's way turn into good fortune. And lastly, Nishiki. This technique imbues Chihiro's speed and attacks with high density spare energy, allowing him to release way more powerful attacks and basically an amplifier for all of his stats. To talk about Nishiki a bit, since Kunishige leaves it up to interpretation, I believe Nishiki serves to only amplify what Chihiro can already do, because Kunishige believes that whoever comes to wield the blade, most likely Chihiro, he knows that he can trust in the wielder's beliefs of good and evil, and so he chooses to have Nishiki amplify their ability to ward off evil and attract good fortune, which can be reflected in his triple color scheme, which includes red and black. To reinforce this, we'll bring up 2 quotes that Kunishige said to Chihiro. First being, "They're still tools for killing people. We are complicit in the deaths that they cause. If they fall into evil hands, they can eliminate good people. Katana should be wielded by those dedicated to vanquishing evil and protecting the weak. That goes for us too. We need to have principles and accountability. One day you'll sell your first katana, and when you hand someone a katana, those 2 heavy weights will fall on your shoulders." This quote is Kunishige expressing his philosophy on the usage of the katana and how they should be used during his final years alive and after the war. And second, when Chihiro sees the enchanted blade for the first time, he says, "The kind of katana that I should try to make." But Kunishige says, "Maybe, but listen. These aren't necessarily the right answer. You can't just strive to make strong enchanted blades. You're gonna have to look at the world through your own eyes and think carefully about what kind of katana it needs and why. I ponder that every day. Slowly but surely, we'll learn to do that together. To clarify this statement, this is Kunishige essentially telling Chihiro to craft blades based on what he believes the world needs most and to create something that is designed to make the world better from his point of view. Kunishige more than likely created those blades to end the war as fast as possible and stop needless bloodshed at the time of their creation. Hence is why he decided to quickly retrieve them after they were no longer needed. This is just an assumption, but Kunishige more than likely views those 6 swords as preventative measures for wars if anything. And since he crafted Enten, the 7th blade after the war, and even gave his life to protect it, we can assume that it was created to either end the evils of the present era, or prevent the world from ever entering another war that would require the use of the other 6 blades. To conclude, this is the philosophy that was used in crafting Enten, and its abilities reflect that. This is also how he believes Enten should be used and by proxy, the other blades in this modern time. But would others agree or even perceive these blades in such a manner, let alone grasping the point that Kunishige attempted to make with them? This is where Sojo, Chihiro's first hurdle and user of Kurigumo, one of the 6 mystic swords that were stolen from his father, enter the story. When Sojo comes in, he deletes Narisaku, Chihiro's past enemy who's turned a new leaf with no hesitation, a direct contrast to what those blades were said to be created for. And after gaining some information, he guns straight for Chihiro's location, for the sake of clashing their mystic blades. Nothing but violence comes from Sojo's usage of Kurigumo in the story, and Chihiro's able to pick up on this fairly quickly. As Sojo's usage of the blade disrespects the creator's intent in their creation, Chihiro deems Sojo not worthy of the blade and instantly charges in the battle against him. Most stories would deem Chihiro as correct in this instance, because he's well aware of his father's intent when creating these blades. But Kagurabachi challenges this line of thinking through these two's confrontations, and as the two clash, Sojo begins to speak about how much he loves Kunishige, stating that the swords that he created were the very best. To even get near that level, I studied all the literature related to him. And finally, I was entrusted with this one, the creation I looked up to so much, the greatest sensation. So he comes to ask Chihiro himself, what's his reason for carrying the blade, because Sojo himself wants to know if Chihiro's worthy of holding a mystic blade. And Chihiro speaks from his father's mouth, saying that they simply serve to destroy evil and protect the weak. It's that simple. And Sojo despises this answer. He claims that nobody else besides him truly understands Kunishige, and everybody calls him a hero, and that there's truly only one reason to make a sword. Sojo and Chihiro both provide their answers to this, with Sojo attempting to delete everybody and Chihiro using his blade as a lightning rod to protect everyone. And the result of this clash displays what their respective paths will lead them toward. Sojo ultimately does nothing and changes nothing with his massive and showy technique, whereas Chihiro is left battered and beaten due to protecting everybody around him but himself. As Sojo puts on a light show due to his desires and causes mass destruction with Kunishige's blades, it leads up to Chihiro snapping because of Sojo's claim that Chihiro's motivation to protect others with these blades is nothing but inappropriate. Their battle of ideals reaches a climax and there is ultimately no winner. He didn't create it from a place of logic. Instead, it was a sudden breakthrough to compensate for his ravaged body. Created by instinct, and in that state of extreme concentration, his innate understanding was accelerated. I could sense that the more I used it, the more I was able to harmonize with the Kurigumo. It's not all that surprising that the intervals got shorter. As the blades of these two evolved alongside their users, positively reinforcing both of their ideals through their usage, could there ever be a winner to this battle? Well, I'd say it depends on how you interpret Chihiro and Sojo's final confrontation. Sojo and Chihiro begin their battle, and within this battle, they enter a mental construct where they're both eating dango. Dango has 3 colors, pink, white, and green, and each color represents the order in which cherry blossoms bloom, with pink representing cherry buds, white resembling the full bloom, and green representing the blossoms after they've fallen, and as a whole, cherry blossoms themselves represent the fragility and beauty of life. When we first come to this construct, Chihiro refuses to even eat the dango at first. Whereas the moment Sojo recognizes Chihiro as Kunishige's son, he eats the red dumpling, and we're then shown that Sojo has reached the white dumpling. He states to Chihiro that he's helped him understand and accept his beliefs about the sacred blades. But that's only the beginning. Sojo, despite accepting Chihiro's belief about the sacred blades, declares that he will wield these swords with his own beliefs and the message that he received from Kunishige's work. And this message is to quote-unquote go slaughter. Even when Chihiro tells him that he saw how his father approached the sword every day, Sojo still says that he's reached his own conclusion, and he doesn't think he's wrong despite what Kunishige says, because the fact remains that his blade still answered his convictions and harmonized with them to slaughter. And with Chihiro recognizing that the blades harmonize with both of their beliefs, Sojo says the big line, "You think you're the only one who can speak for Rokuhira? I thought the same, but that's wrong. Anyone can take on that role. That's why this battle is meaningful. No more pride and no more tricks." Chihiro finally decides to eat the first dango after accepting this truth and reaching the same point as Sojo. He remembers what his father once told him about the katanas being tools for hurting others, and that he must come to see the world through his own eyes. And as Chihiro eats the final dango, symbolizing that he's finally let go of his father's ideals and has chosen to seek his own, he remembers that doing this was something that they'll learn to do together. He accepts what Sojo said and says to him that all he can do from here on out is cut him down. And cut him down he does. So, what's the answer? If I have to say, I'll start here. We see that Sojo never finishes the second dango, resembling his full blue, whereas Chihiro himself finishes all of the dango, even getting past the fallen blossom phase. Sojo in this battle accepts that there are other viewpoints and perspectives, but he refuses to grow past that, thriving in his own validation and positive reinforcement given to him by the Kurigumo. Whereas Chihiro completing his entire dango as he accepts that, despite having every reason in the world to believe what he believes while wielding Enten, even massive positive reinforcement behind it with his growth as a samurai, he still needs to grow and form his own views. He needs to see the world through his own eyes rather than trying to speak for his father, and come to his own conclusion as to how these blades should be used. He accepts how Sojo will use the blade, because they are different people with different backgrounds, ideals, and perceptions. They both study the author more than any other, and yet they've come to complete opposite conclusions, and they both accept the other's reasoning and logic behind said conclusions. They wield these blades with their own souls, but only one still recognizes that despite their evolution and positive reinforcement, they have even more growth to undergo, and this is what decides the winner. Despite Kunishige's accomplishments and creation of these blades, even he still knew that he had to continuously seek an answer as to what their purpose should be and how they should be used, and the winner would be the one to recognize this. The fight choreography even reflects this conclusion. As the two are at the peaks of their power, flying in high-speed combat, Chihiro chooses to halt himself and swaps to his first technique, Kuro, rather than remaining in the height as Sojo stood in. And the moment Chihiro recognized he had to slow down and halt his movement instead of enjoying the thrill of his power such as Sojo was, that ended the battle. Although this is where Sojo's story ends, how about Chihiro? How do I believe the story will go, and what do I believe his conclusion will be? We're only on chapter 19, so I find it premature to answer this, but I'll make an attempt anyways. As Rokuhira means 6 levels and Chihiro means 1,000 questions, I believe that Chihiro's story and antagonist will constantly poke at what is the correct way to handle these swords and Chihiro's beliefs. But he will grow in strength and cut all those who challenge his beliefs with his own. Simple, but I'm sure Hokozona will handle it if it goes down this route. To conclude, I find Kagurabachi's first arc to be one of the most thrilling first arcs I've ever read when you truly slow down and read what's being said to you. However, I've been reading manga since I was 11 or 12, so I'm sure my comprehension has only grown since then, and that I may have judged previous stories that I've read when I was younger a little bit prematurely. I do need to say that the way the death of the author was used in this story to allow both swordsmen to interpret how the blade should be used, to accept how others will use it, despite how much these characters may despise others' beliefs, and how Chihiro won because he kept an open mind and realized that he can still always develop his beliefs is amazing. Kagurabachi challenges readers to have their own interpretations of art and to acknowledge that their interpretations aren't absolute with a very strong art. And this was only in the first 18 chapters of the series. With that in mind, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys will give Kagurabachi a chance if you haven't read it yet, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace out.